Notre Dame has now had 4 of their offensive linemen enter the transfer portal. Notre Dame starting offensive lineman Rocco Spindler has entered the transfer portal. He has started for Notre Dame the past couple of seasons. Notre Dame starting center Pat Coogan is expected and now has entered the transfer portal as well. So there's going to be no shortage of teams that want these guys. These are good offensive linemen. Notre Dame was very physical in the trenches for the most part. When they were banged up and missing guys, it looked a little different versus Penn State, and Ohio State's just really good across the front. But again, Army led all of college football with 4,207 total rushing yards this year. They throw the ball once every other decade, so that is not an entire shock. All right, Boise State, 3,365 total rush yards, and Mr. Ashton Jeanty. And then you had Notre Dame, 3,162 total rush yards on the season. These are guys who are good players, proven players, experienced players, physical players. I'm curious to see if Nebraska goes after them, if they can land one. Another offensive tackle for the Huskers would be great. All right, maybe you move Gunnar Gatula inside. Maybe you keep Gunnar at the tackle spot. You land one of these interior offensive linemen from Notre Dame. I just know we got to play better on offense, on the offensive line specifically. Talked about it a million times. Feel good about our quarterback. Feel good about the running back situation. I'm kind of trusting the coaches. Haven't done a lot to try to bring in a portal running back. Why is that? They must like what they've got. I'm just going to trust them. For me, I'd like to see a little bit more movement there. I got to trust them on this. You look at the wide receivers, brought in a ton of wide receivers. Plus, you've got Ja'Cory Barney. You look at the tight ends. All right, who's the tight end? I talked about him. He was hurt, came from LSU. One of the top tight ends got hurt, but now he's going to be healthy. You remember his name, Jake?
Yeah, Mac Markway.
So he's an option. You got Carter Nelson. You got Heimer Carberg. You got Lindenmeyer. I mean, you got all these options. It's the offensive line. And I'm not saying the guys that aren't there can't step up and improve and get better and play better. Just haven't seen it. Just haven't seen even close to it for far too long to put your faith 100% in that. So for me, we need to get better. A quick way to do that is by bringing in experienced guys who have produced and you know they can contribute right away, mixing it with what you've got, your current experienced guys, and your young and up-and-coming guys who are trying to earn some play time as well. What are your thoughts on the O-line? Notre Dame has got 4 guys. I'm surprised, man. People just love Marcus Free. I'm surprised they have that many guys going into the portal, especially as good as people predict them to be next year. Everyone has them top 5 at the moment. We've also got the spring and summer and everything else to figure all this out, so we got some time. But what are your thoughts at the moment, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I think they still need some offensive line help. And obviously they were going after Shaez Pete and hoping to secure that at tackle. And I think tackle would be preferred. But if you can't get a tackle out of the portal, just to maybe to get an interior offensive lineman to help shore some of that stuff up, at least get competition. Some of these Notre Dame guys, I think you would look at more as competition rather than coming in and being the immediate starter. Of course, I think every team has 20 or so offensive linemen. So you lose 4 or 5 of them. It seems like a lot, but it's not like they're all starters. But it also just kind of interests me because Notre Dame had some serious offensive line attrition and injury problems to go with, at the end there. So
that's true.
It's just kind of interesting. Maybe certain guys felt like maybe they were not given the path there. I mean, one of them started 7 games. They didn't go back to him. So it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. Nebraska, I think needs, would love another starter out of the portal. But honestly, if you don't, I think they could line up with what they've got.
Hold on. You would feel good if they lined up with what they have right now.
Good is not what I would say.
Oh, okay. Clarify then.
I would say that Gatula played well enough that I could see him as a starting tackle next year without, overwhelming fear, I suppose, that it would just cave in.
Who else you got? Because I'm intrigued by that statement. Who else you got? Who would be the starters then?
Well, I think Justin Evans, you feel pretty good at guard.
Okay, I like that.
And then, obviously Elijah Pritchett, your new tackle.
How do you feel about that if he is your starting right tackle, I assume? We don't know enough to really give an educated answer on that.
I mean, he started at Alabama. I think that he's, hopefully he can make another jump because he was giving up a lot of pressures there at Alabama. But I think you'd feel okay about it. Again, this is not ideal. That's why we're talking about it. They need to kind of get some help out of the portal. But I think that you could feel okay about it. But at some point, we've got to ask for Donovan to develop some of these guys himself.
Yep.
because we've been talking about it, and for years it's been, well, we got these new tackles in to compete with Turner and Benhart, and then Corcoran and Benhart are your starters, right? And then, obviously Corcoran got hurt. You've dealt with that, but at some point we need some of these younger guys to develop, and Evans is doing that. So I'm not saying it didn't completely happen, but at some point we do want to rely on some of the younger guys, and for this to truly evaluate what Raiola is doing in that, you want to see some of these younger guys come up and take some of those spots.
That's a completely fair point, because so who would let me come back to my thought. I want to get, who would your starting 5 O linemen be with the little information we have right now, like nothing out of winter conditioning really yet, no spring ball, no portal moves right now? If Nebraska had a game tomorrow Saturday, they have a game tomorrow, who would your 5 starting offensive linemen be?
I think, like I said, I think I'd go with Gatula and Pritchard at tackle. I think Justin Evans moves to center, and then you probably got Hunter Latovsky at a guard there. Corcoran probably not healthy enough to play right now, but could be playing next year. Same thing for Prohaska, but if you had to go today, you you get pretty thin there. Maybe have Sam Sledge or Grant Bricks give it a go.
I think you were being nice earlier when you're like, we could line up with what. That's why I followed up, because I was like, I'm curious about this. And so you wouldn't feel great. And now I think when we kind of sit down and think about it, and we don't have information from the spring who has stepped up. Like, my biggest jump of my entire career was my redshirt freshman year spring ball. I was a different player from that fall when I was a true freshman on scout team through the next fall when I was actually a redshirt freshman eligible to play. That spring, going against Richie every day. And I started to win more battles than I was losing. And that's not me bragging. That's one of the baddest dudes, whether you like him or not, whatever you think of him or not, that I've ever met. And when people have asked me, Adam, when did you know you could play at this level? When I could line up every day. And that dude would look at me like he didn't know if he was going to win, because he would look at defensive linemen like they were lunch more often than not. That included starters, guys with shirts that were black on their back. Okay. He didn't look at me like that. And I was just some guy who couldn't play for another 5 or 6 months in the fall because it was spring ball. I just got done redshirting, so I was holding freaking bags half the time in practice. I was a blocking dummy. All of a sudden, that's what kind of gave me my confidence, because I walked in with I didn't walk in with a chip on my shoulder. I walked in with a forest on my shoulder. That meant I was motivated. That didn't mean I knew if I could actually do it or not. I was on an 0-9 high school team, and I was a freaking quarterback. I didn't play defense till my senior year of high school. My junior year, no defense. My sophomore year, I was a safety because my coach didn't want me getting touched because I was going to be the quarterback. I don't even remember what I played in my freshman year. So long ago. But my point is simply coming to Nebraska. You got to remember, this was Nebraska. All right, just played in the Rose Bowl, regardless of how that went. Won a conference title in '99, just fresh off the '90s. Like, this was Nebraska at the time. And so for me, I mean, man, FOF is a real thing. Fear of failure is a driving force. It will either drive you into the dirt or it will drive you to go harder than you could possibly imagine. And that's what it did with me. And it wasn't until I looked at Richie and I'm like, bro, I got just as good a chance of winning this next down as you do. He knew it and I knew it. And we went to war in a football sense and a couple of times in another sense. But my point is, that's when I knew. So there's so much information we don't have right now. What about a Grant Bricks? All right. This is going to be his spring ball going into his redshirt freshman season. Preston Tamua, okay, one of the top players, 4-star, 320 pounds, as he walked in the door out of Hawaii, guard. What's he look like this spring? Without that information, because there's so many question marks and so much unknown. That's why I talk about we need help from the portal. I like guys who are proven and have experience. Guys with high ceilings are great, but I like guys who are proven and have experience. Also, we need competition. We need depth. Part of the reason was I was battling other defensive ends for playtime. And if I didn't play well, I was going to be sitting my butt on the bench. And I didn't like that idea. I just don't like losing in general, whether it's a game or a one-on-one drill. So those were things that drove me. So we'll learn a lot about throughout this offseason. For me, if we had to start tomorrow with the little information we have right now, it'd probably be Gunner, Justin Evans-Jenkins at center, Henry Latovsky, who, by the way, started a year earlier than he was supposed to last year because Micah Mazuka was so up and down. And then I guess Pritchett at the right tackle where there's question marks. And then Grant Bricks or Preston out of Hawaii. Like, Somebody's got to step up, and that's just trying to fill your top 5. So I'm with you. At a certain point, Donovan Raiola's got to develop guys. Right now, we got one guy that he can say, hey, Justin Evans Jenkins, we need more guys than that. And I'm rooting for him, to be clear. I'm rooting for him.